What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be talking about this topic today because it is near and dear to my heart, and I know it's going to be helpful just to hear if you are going through this as well and you need help with it. So right now I'm going to talk about my Lyme treatments and co-infections and everything that have worked for me and which have given me my progress so far. And so I'm going to go off my notes so I stay on track. But I want to start out by saying that I'm not doing disulfiram. So in a few other videos I talk about doing disulfiram, and disulfiram is a drug that was originally made for alcoholism, and it works it was found to also work for Lyme disease. It works for a lot of people in eliminating Lyme completely, which is so awesome, and so I was excited to start it. But then I also got really fearful around it, and I was trying to listen to my intuition and everything, and it was just saying like so much fear, and it wasn't right for me. So there's a lot of neurological symptoms to it. There's a whole bunch of it, and you can't touch any alcohol, like not even just drink. You can't touch products that have alcohol, and almost every cosmetic has alcohol in it unless you're really trying to find alcohol free. And so that was really hard too, and it was too much. I mean, I had so much going on in my life already that it just didn't make sense for me. I still have it in my cabinet if I do need to start it, but now instead I'm going to go to Lyme Stop in May. So right now it's the end of April, so in a few weeks, like 3 weeks, I'm going to Lyme Stop. And Lyme Stop is biomagnetism, and I'll talk about it more, but super excited. I feel in my heart that that's right for me, and I think that's really important for anyone going through Lyme disease, is to be able to listen to your intuition and not just what a doctor tells you. So a lot of doctors are not specialized in, or like they're very Western allopathic, and so their approach to Lyme disease is antibiotics. And antibiotics, it's hard because in research, antibiotics just chase the Lyme disease, and it can chase it back into hiding. It's not really eliminating it. Camera died. Okay. And then two, what was I saying? Antibiotics chases Lyme. And two, Lyme disease has so many different co-infections that are not just bacterial, and so when you have Lyme, you have a lowered immune system, and so you're catching all these other viruses and fungus that you can get just from candida overgrowth, or you can get from mold exposure, and you have heavy metals on top of it. There's just so much. And then you have the conditions that are created from like mold, for instance, because Lyme and mold are so hand in hand. They're just both immunosuppressant, and they don't work well together, obviously. But then you get things like chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which can be caused by mold or Lyme disease, and you get mast cell activation syndrome, which happens in all mold illness cases to some extent. And so there's just so many different things. So antibiotics, in my opinion, are not the only, like the end all cure all to Lyme disease. And so that's why I've never done them. I never went that route, and I'm really happy that I didn't go that route, and I know that some people, it works for them. If Lyme disease, specifically Lyme disease, is your only issue, then maybe that works for you. And I've met people who really had success with it, so I'm not bashing it. It just wasn't right for me. So with that being said, I want to talk about the improvements that I've had so far in the past year of treatment. And it's just been about a year, a little bit over a year. I started in February 2018. And so I made a post about it on Instagram, and I'll share it right here. But so celebrating some big wins since my Lyme treatment 1 year ago. Okay, big wins. Healed all bacterial gut infections. So when I started, I had so many bacterial gut infections, and before I started, a year before I started my treatment, I also had C. diff, and so C. diff is really serious, and I actually got rid of that, thank God. But I had other bacterial infections as well, and they were all cleared last time I checked, just a few months ago, and that's just such a good feeling, because gut issues have been with me like my whole life. I've always remembered having stomach problems and pains and bloating and all of that. So that was huge. I cleared all parasites. No parasites came up in my stool test. Lowered all viral infections, and so I still have cytomegalovirus, but last time I tested, I still had cytomegalovirus. I don't know about if I still have it right now. I do need to retest. And Epstein-Barr, it didn't show as active, but Epstein-Barr is really creative with its hiding spots, and so it can be in different places of the body. It likes to hide in the liver, according to some people. And so I'll find out at Lyme Stop where it is exactly in my body, which will be really cool. Removed thousands of gallstones. So I will talk about, I'll talk about how I did this, but It was really insane to first see my first gallstone come out of me. I didn't know those existed, first of all, and I didn't know you could remove them on your own. And then, what else? White blood cells back in range. This was a huge moment in my healing journey because I was so scared to have a really low immune system, you know, especially with right now and what's going on in the world with coronavirus. Having a lowered immune system, compromised immune system, it's really scary going out in the world and traveling and going on airplanes and everything. And so when I got my white blood cells back in range, it was just like, it was such a celebration for me. What else? Liver and kidney function back in range. And so my liver and kidneys were really struggling when I first started getting seen for this. And I believe that's mostly due to the mold because it's so toxic. And so that all got back in range, which is awesome. Lowered active Lyme bands. So Lyme disease is still active in my body according to IGeneX, but it was lowered. The bands were lowered. And so that's why I'm going to Lyme Stop, is just to eliminate Lyme disease and to move past that part of my healing, because it's just one part. Lyme disease is just one part. There's so many other parts. I got my thyroid back in range. So getting my thyroid back in range was really huge as well, because I was actually prescribed thyroid medicine, and I went and picked it up, but I just refused to take it because my intuition again told me, you don't need to take this, like just get it back in range. And so I ended up getting it back in range just from everything I was doing. Like I can't pinpoint one thing, like diet and everything. Specifically, I took iodine and iron, and so those two together, because I was low in those, because I did all the testing, which I really recommend doing. You find someone who can run all these tests. I was low in those things, and I started supplementing them and adding them more into my diet, and then my thyroid went back in range and no need for the medicine anymore. I'm like so dry mouth right now because I'm on day 9 of a juice fast, and you stop producing saliva when you don't eat solid foods, so it's like, yeah. Okay, cleared all body rashes. This was so huge as well. I feel like I'm saying this is so huge to everything, but it is. I had chronic body rashes. I don't know specifically what it's from. I think it was mainly candida, but it was my armpits, and it was just so embarrassing, and it was uncomfortable. It hurt, and anytime I was hot, it would get worse. And once I started doing my detox, those went away and they haven't come back, thank God. I am now allergic to the deodorant that I was using before. Even though it's natural, it makes me get a rash, but I know, I don't wear deodorant anymore. I just wear apple cider vinegar and a spray bottle with water, and that's what my boyfriend and I, Sean, both do. I want to say Sean, but I haven't had him. I have had him on camera. Okay, Sean, my boyfriend. What else? Cleared cystic acne. So I have makeup on right now, but you can kind of see the scars, and right now because I'm on the juice fast, you can see them down there. But if this was a year ago, oh my gosh, it was a mountain range. Like you could see, maybe it wasn't as big of a deal to other people, but I'll include pictures right now because it was intense. And I had that for 5-6 years, ever since I started getting sick from the initial trauma that triggered my Lyme disease, which was my car accident. And so traumas lower the immune system, and when you have a dormant Lyme disease, you can trigger Lyme disease to take over your body, and it really is uncomfortable. But that was my healing journey, and so that's when the acne started. It was immediately after my car accident. Lost 10 pounds of stubborn mold weight, and so to some people 10 pounds might not seem like a lot, but for me, I see it really significantly in my face especially. So when I went on my detox, I lost 10 pounds that never came back, because the way that fat cells work is that they store toxins in them to protect the body, because they're safer. The toxins are safer in there because they're not affecting the body. So the body's really smart, it's trying to help you, but when you gain a bunch of weight because you're exposed to mold or some kind of toxic thing, it's because your body's doing that. And so I wasn't able, because of chronic inflammatory response syndrome, I wasn't able to remove the toxins when I moved out of mold on my own. I had to do some extra detoxing, and that worked for me, and I'm just so happy. And the juicing too, I know that right now that I'm going through the same process where I'm eliminating these toxins. Balanced hormones, and so I haven't done a hormone test because my doctor and I don't want to do them consistently, because when you're going through healing and detoxing, and even when you're really sick, your hormones are commonly first to blame for all your symptoms, but it's not your hormones' fault. They're sensitive. They go out of whack when you have other things going on in your body. And so we haven't tested them at all in the past year, a little bit over a year. But I know that my hormones balance because I wasn't having like the tender breast boobs for my period, and I wasn't having the cramps anymore. I just felt more stable, and so that's how I was able to tell. I wasn't getting PMS. I just felt I could feel my hormones stabilizing. And successfully moved out of mold. That was a huge win, and I talk about that a lot on here. Moving out of mold was absolutely 100% essential in our healing journey, specifically my healing journey. Sean has his own, but we both dealt with mold illness. And so the things that I've done to heal, so those are all the accomplishments that I've had in the past year. But the things that I've done to heal, it took me a while to understand what kind of commitment this was going to take. Okay, so when I first started getting treated, I didn't understand like how much commitment I needed to do to my protocol. And so I kind of dabbled with the diet change and alcohol and supplements. I was still in my old ways, and it took a while for me to really understand what I needed to do. I wasn't consistent with my supplements. I wasn't consistent with the diet change. And then every time my doctor would ask me about it and I wasn't feeling better, she'd be like, well, did you do this? Did you take this? And I was like, well, no, I could be better. And she's awesome, but she threatened to drop me and have me go do some kind of Western allopathic medicine and get on antibiotics. And I was like, oh no. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And of course I started crying. I used to cry in every single one of my doctor's appointments because I was so overwhelmed, and also really happy to find a doctor that could help me. And so diet change for me was gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, grain-free. And so I've been on that since I started, even though it's not very consistent in the beginning, but I am very, very much so right now. This is my diet because it lowers inflammation, it lowers any kind of trigger that we have, and it's pretty common to eat this way when you're healing from any kind of chronic illness. And it's a commitment, but it does get easier, and we just cook mostly at home. And luckily, I don't know where, it depends where you live, but in California at least, it's very easy to find gluten-free options and to take out dairy. And when I first started being health conscious, everyone kind of looked at me like, what, you want vegan, gluten-free, blah, blah, blah. And it's way more accepted now, and people know that that's not okay to treat people at restaurants like that. I also started eating meat after about 20 years of being a vegetarian and then vegan for the end of it. I didn't want to do this. I knew that I needed to because I was so low in iron, I was so low in vitamin D, and I was out of options like quinoa and all that because I couldn't eat grains, I couldn't have fruit anymore, like high sugar fruit. And so I was really running out of options, and my intuition was also telling me that I needed meat in my diet, which I hated because I was an ethical eater. That was my purpose for being a vegetarian vegan, was because it was all ethics. I love animals so much. And so then when I finally was convinced to start eating meat by my doctor and everyone who I trust in the medical field, it was a hard change, and it was hard because it was my identity as well. So that could be a whole nother topic as well. Yeah, I was running out of options to eat with the new diet, so it did help me. My skin started clearing after I started eating meat, whether that's from everything else I was doing, but just the amino acids. You want to have a complete protein when you're eating protein, and it's hard to get that in vegetables. You have to be really knowledgeable about what you're eating and understand that you have to get it from each amino acid from a different kind of food, or you can eat complete proteins like quinoa, but it just wasn't working for me. So that was a big change. Supplements, I added a ton, and I don't want to get into all of them because these supplements are specific to my health and what I was deficient in and what I needed in my body. Like if I was having bad blood pressure, like I was getting really cold hands and feet and like that kind of stuff, then I would take like LIKEtoKNOW.it, which is really good for blood thinning, and it's just specific things to me. But I've been on a ton of supplements, like probably around like 15 every day. Yeah, it's a lot, but I'm working towards not having to do that. And then next, after I started doing the diet change and supplements, my first treatment really that I did was removing the parasites. And so this is essential for almost all chronic illness, is you really have to go after the parasites first. And so I did Mimosa pudica seed along with the microbe formulas protocol. So Microbe Formulas is a great website and they really know what they're doing. Dr. J, I heard him on Learn True Health podcast when I was really sick living in the mold, and he really helped me understand that I had Lyme disease before I was even diagnosed. So everyone in this community really enjoys their products and stands by them. So the next thing that I started was ozone IV therapy, and this, I started it because it was good for eliminating all viruses and bacteria in the blood. And so it worked by, I would go get my blood taken out, and if you don't know about ozone IV therapy, I would get my blood taken out, and then they would run it through ozone or put ozone in it, and then they would run it through a UV light, and so they would have the IV put back in me, and they would, I'm trying to remember, I haven't done it for a while. Yeah, so they take the blood out and then they would put the ozone in it, run it through the UV light, and as it's running through the UV light, it's going back into my arm, and then it's cleaning the blood essentially, and the UV light helps retrain the immunity of the cell, and so once it comes back in the body, your body is like relearning its intelligence of how to heal. And I did that for a really long time. And then when it was getting removed from my office, and luckily it was covered under insurance, which I've never heard before in any other doctor setting. And so it was covered under insurance, but then when they had to take it out of the office, I was going like 5 days a week and getting it as much as I could. The ozone, I think it did help a lot, but I didn't feel very good, and I'll get into that. But I started getting my life back a little bit here and there. And like some days I would like be able to smell or feel again, like have emotions again, and like those were all really huge. The next IV that I started a little bit after ozone, so I kind of did them at the same time and I would alternate days, was PC IV therapy and then also vitamin C IV therapy. And so PC IV therapy was really good because PC works by, it like scrapes the toxins off of your cells, and so you have to work your way up to the highest dose, but it's really good if you have like chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And I also, although I was doing all 3 of these IVs, I plateaued and I wasn't noticing that much of a change. And so before I get into what I did in result of that, I was also taking antibiotics and antifungals when needed. And so for the candida, if it ever got really bad, I would do antifungals. And then for the bacteria, antibiotic, the only time in the past year and a half or yearish that I have been treated with antibiotics is because I have had MRSA in my sinuses, and I wanted to do antibiotics because I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was really scaring me. I read some really scary things about MRSA, but I also take colloidal silver and Reboost nasal spray to treat the nasal infection that I still have some kind of condition in the nasals, which I'm working on. And so because I plateaued, I really needed to do something different, and we ended up doing the mold move. So we realized that we were still living in mold. We still had our moldy clothes from our last moldy places, and then we found that the humidity in the bathroom of our apartment was 90%, and so 90%, and so we had to do the mold move. Like if we wanted to get better, we had to get out of mold, and I didn't believe that we were still in mold. And then I finally came and listened to my intuition. I knew this stuff when I left the mold at first. Like, you do have to clean everything. You do have to get rid of a lot of things or clean them really intensely. And so I just had to face that. And so we made the big decision, which is in another video with our mold story. And also I recorded our mold moves. We made the big decision to do the whole mold move. And that was where we turned our life around. Honestly, it's required if you're trying to heal from mold illness and Lyme disease along with mold illness. So once we moved and successfully got into this place, which we love and we're so grateful for, we started doing the liver and gallbladder cleanse. Oh, but first we did a month-long detox to prepare for the liver and gallbladder cleanse. So the month-long detox was 2 weeks of all veggies. The first week we had nuts and seeds, and then we removed those, and it was all veggies. And then we went into a paleo, it's a specific kind of detox. And so the detox had these shakes that we'd have every morning and night, and then in between we would just have juice, and so we would use the juicer and make our own juice. And so we did that for 2 weeks, all liquid for 2 weeks. And the first week of the detox, when we had like nuts, veggies, seed, I didn't feel good. Like I felt so horrible. And then I started getting my life back, and we started like training, just feeling like things were good again. Like not great, but they were good again. And so that was so awesome. And then we went straight after the month, we went straight into a liver and gallbladder cleanse. My doctor was guiding us through all of this. She recommended all of this. And so the liver and gallbladder cleanse, there's a book on it, and it's this method of removing gallstones where you drink Epsom salt, and you have that 4 different times, a tablespoon of Epsom salt within like 12 hours. And you also drink a combination of olive oil and grapefruit juice. And then throughout the whole 12 hours, you're removing these green balls from your body that could not be anything else. They're gallstones. And like, you go online, people try and debunk it, but you see them and you're like, that's never come out of me before. So thousands and thousands of gallstones in all different shapes and sizes, like very, very teeny or like pretty massive. Sometimes they're like, it's like that big, and they come out of you in many of them, and it's so crazy. So yeah, that was the biggest turning point, was when we started detoxing after we moved. And we do the liver and gallbladder cleanse bi-weekly still, until we're symptom free. And so we kind of were inconsistent with it because we were traveling a lot for the beginning of the year, and we're back on it now, and we're doing our best to do it every 2 weeks. And right now we're on day 9 of our juice fast, and so then after our juice fast we'll do another liver and gallbladder cleanse. But we wanted to do this juice fast because we felt so good the first time we detoxed, and we knew that it was time to do that again. And so we'll have another video as well about the juice experience where I talk with Sean. And I talked about disulfiram, so I didn't do disulfiram. That would have been next after the detox and liver and gallbladder cleanses. I would have started that like 2 months ago. I didn't do it, clearly. And then next, in 3 weeks, I go to Lyme Stop. And right now, from a little over a year ago, I would say I'm probably 60, maybe 70, 65 to 70% better. So there's still healing to do, but so much better. Feeling wise, like energy and everything. But when I look at my labs and all those big wins, like so much better. And it's hard to know how much better you are, but when you keep track of it, it makes it easier. And so I'm super excited for Lyme Stop. Lyme Stop is biomagnetism, and they are able at Lyme Stop, it's in Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. They're able to do this thing where they test for each infection, and they hold the antidote over the determined spot of the body that like reads for that infection. And if it reacts in some way, this is my understanding, if it reacts in some way, then you have that infection. And so then they go and they treat that infection with magnets. And the way that it works with the magnets is it triggers the immune system to go after that specific infection. So after the treatment, which is like 2 to 3 days, you have the next year to heal, and your body will be detoxing and removing all these things that were causing your symptoms. And I'm super excited. The person that I know, she is so much better. She says she's about 90% better. She went to Lyme Stop, and she immediately had this like anxiety cleared, and she didn't know she had anxiety. She was just used to living like that. But when it was cleared, she just explains it like the clouds are clearing, like it was just like so like, whoa, like this is life. And so I know everyone's different, but I'm so called to do it. I'm so excited, and I will definitely be sharing my experience. I'll vlog during the trip and then share my experience as well. So I hope this is helpful, sharing what I've done to get the results that I have with my Lyme disease and all the other stuff that come with Lyme disease, my experience. So if you have any questions, you can go to my Instagram, loveyourquirkes, and you can ask me in the DMs. I'm always open to talking about this kind of stuff. I know how lonely it can be, and I wish that when I was going through it, when I was first really, really sick and had no answers, that I knew there was a whole community of people willing to help. So thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. And I'm super excited. I'm super excited to be here and talking about everything that makes me excited, which is health, nutrition, the stuff that got me through my chronic illness, and just well-being and living a happy, healthy life, and integrative nutrition, and sharing my education, but also my experience in nutrition and integrative health. So thank you guys, and I'll see you soon.